Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship and get ready with me to pay off debt. You know what's funny? I actually didn't know what get ready with me or GRWM content was until I saw a video of a young lady freak out on TikTok in Los Angeles about how she got fired from her job. And then I watched her other videos and then I noticed like the GRWM like hashtag. Like, what does that mean? Get ready with me. And I was like, I am not the demographic for this. Oh, what are you doing? I actually like natural beauty. I feel like I'm one of the last people on earth who kind of would rather see that, natural beauty. Cause I'll be honest, some of these ladies, they look so different without their makeup. And it's like, maybe I need to do that, put on a million pounds of makeup. Simple everyday makeup tutorial. VLE 11 days ago. What do we have here? GRWM for school. GRWM for school. I feel like I'm going to be the first person online to GRWM with debt. Get ready with me to pay off debt. Look at this 43 million views. 43 million views. Get ready with me. All right. What else do we have here? Get ready with me. Get ready with me. Dang. Everybody wants to be like Kim Kardashian these days. It feels like, right? All right. Well, what the heck is this? Okay. But I am going to be the first person possibly on planet Earth to get ready to pay off debt. And that's what we're going to do today, folks. Velocity banking, pay off debt. Um, and so how do we do that? Well, first thing we got to do is create a budget. So your budget is essentially your debt attack plan, and you have your income, your expenses, and your leftover savings. And then what you do is you create an expense breakdown that lists every single debt that you have. And then in this last column or row here, you list every single I'm sorry, you combine all of your expenses that you think on general that you would have to pay per month for your food, gas, insurance, everything that's non-debt related, right? So the red is the non-debt related items, and then the black is the debt related items. Okay. Now, if you really think about it, you're not just paying $2,200 for your personal expenses because people like to include housing for that. So including your housing, you're paying about 3,400. But just from a pure financial perspective, we're just separating debt versus non-debt because the whole point of the strategy is just to increase your cash flow and to pay off your debt, right? And so what we're going to do in the velocity banking side is have the same income, same expenses, right? And show you that, if we redirect the flow of money, then we can have a different outcome. And the first step to this, okay, is not saving money. It's all psychological, the first step. Because if you look at most popular finance channels, like the biggest one I can think of right now is like Caleb Hammer, who got big maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, he talks about saving money. Oh, you need emergency funds. So it's kind of like a copy of Dave Ramsey, but our emergency fund is not our checking or savings account when we're doing velocity banking. Our emergency fund is something called a line of credit, right? And so if you take a look here, you can see that when my money comes in, I just don't save it. The checking or savings account is essentially a middleman. It's a middleman, right? And our line of credit is the final destination. So think about how, for the vast majority of the population, aka the average American, it's actually the opposite. The checking account is like the final destination, and then they treat their line of credit or credit cards as like the middleman, right? And that's not what we do here. Okay, so we don't save money, and then what we're going to do is we're going to um, increase our cash flow, right? So cash flow and savings is kind of the same in the average American style of banking, but in velocity banking, they're kind of two different concepts, right? So we can increase this simply by not saving money. And one of the things that we also need is something called a line of credit. So that's like, I wouldn't say it's the next step, right? Because if you're $14.66 left over, you're probably not going to get a line of credit. But let's go back one step and explain what is a line of credit. Well, all a line of credit is a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. So this is my home equity line of credit, $373,500. So what does this mean? Basically, it means when I go to the bank's website, okay, I go to the bank's website and then I can click a button and it'll dump up to $373,500 into my checking account, right? And I can borrow as much as I want as long as there's an available limit. And so it literally is that easy. In fact, I think I have like 20 bank accounts, and this is just one of them, right? And so if you see a line of credit right here, and then you see this checking account, all I have to literally do is just click a button and then bam, I can borrow up to 15 grand, and then I just click a button and then it'll appear in my checking account. That's how easy it is. Now, you probably already have a line of credit, even though maybe you may not have heard of the term. Okay. Because a credit card is a line of credit, right? You swipe it, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. That's literally what a line of credit is. Although it's a little bit more restrictive than your other types of lines of credit, like the signature personal line of credit or home equity, because with this one, I can use to pay everything and anything, right? Whereas with the credit card, ooh, there's some restrictions. So paying off a loan with the credit card, I've done it before. A little bit harder than people um, would like to think, because sometimes when I first got into the credit game and learned about credit, everybody made it seem like, oh, just having a bunch of credit cards is a good thing, but you need various tools because each tool has their own advantages and disadvantages, right? But yes, $373,500. And by the way, before I get more into detail, let me go ahead and flex a little bit, just because I need to do that for my ego. Um, I paid off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months. Just wanted to put that out there just in case you're new, and I'm pretty sure people who've watched this channel are kind of sick and tired of hearing that. But yes, I did. I actually did pay off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months. So just want to throw that out there. And here's another thing I want to throw out there, because I gotta not only flex my financial right arm, which is the mortgage paid off in 2 years and 9 months. I also have to flex my left financial bicep, which is that I actually have over $739,000 in lines of credit, right? So this includes credit cards, personal lines, and all the other good stuff, home equity line, and $739,000, right? So I could borrow up to that much with in pretty much in an instant, and then yeah, buy whatever I want. Right? I can buy whatever I want. So hopefully I don't spend it on I don't know, what would be a waste of money? I was thinking of like hookers and drugs, because there was a guy who won like the Powerball, and then I think he was asked like what he would spend it on. So let me just see, Powerball winner, hookers and drugs, or was it lottery? Yeah, hookers and cocaine. And this is a lady who is so in love with her band. It's like this guy knows what he wants. Hookers and cocaine. All right. But I don't think I'll buy that. I don't know. Maybe I would go crazy if I won the Powerball and just using hookers and cocaine, which I won't. Which I won't. So okay, we're gonna be a little bit rated G here, not really rated R. All right, so let's go ahead and let me go back here. So top 0.01%, $739,000. And yeah, I mean, so you might be asking, how, like, what's the game plan? How, you must know all this knowledge. No, no, no. I don't really know that much. I'm going to be honest with you. I just know the secret that's really easy to memorize and understand is that banks don't lend money to people who need it. Banks don't lend money to people who need it, because according to the bank, a person who needs money is a bad person. And why are they a bad person? Because they don't pay you back. That's why banks don't lend money to people who need it. And the bank is kind of like an insurance company, in the sense that they have large amounts of access to large amounts of data, right? I remember watching George Camel from the Dave Ramsey group or whatever, and he was like, he always says something like, "Oh, I talked to ex-employees of Citibank, and they would run studies of like what's the easiest way to get people to spend on their credit cards." And I think one of the things he said is like calling it like 10,000 points rather than like 10 cents or something gets people to spend, right? So, yeah. So, what's the whole point of me talking about this is because they know from the large amount of data that they have, right? Huge amounts of data, and they have access to the credit bureaus. They know statistically people who need money don't pay you back. And that's like the ultimate sin to a bank, especially if you're 90 days late. So the reason why I say it's like similar to an insurance company is because the insurance company, they're really into something called the law of large numbers. So the thing that an insurance company doesn't want to do is pay out, right? So what they do is they price their insurance accordingly. They make it cheap when they think that they're not going to pay you out, right? That's just how insurance works. And the reason why they can kind of predict that is because when you have huge sets of data, it's much easier to predict a result. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically, if you flip a coin twice, what's the likelihood that you're going to get 50-50 heads and tails? Like one heads and one tails. It's not really going to be 50-50. And this is kind of hard for people to understand, that you could have heads heads, tails tails, not necessarily 50-50, right? So the likelihood of you flipping a coin twice and getting 50-50 is low. However, if you flip a coin, let's say 100,000 times, what's the likelihood that you're going to get 50-50? It's actually much higher. That's what the law of large numbers means. It's like when you have a large data set, you can predict an outcome, right? And that's how banks know that they shouldn't lend money to people who need it, because people who need money, according to their large data sets, don't pay you back. See how that works? And so if you want to see, or if you want to understand how I got all these lines of credit, well, I just kind of gave the bank what they wanted. I always went to the bank when I didn't need money. And then magically, now I got $739,000. It'll probably be a million soon. It'll probably be a million, right? But I'm not in a rush. Well, like what 1 or 2 years have passed and I'm over a million. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna assume we have access to a $250,000 8% line of credit, free and clear. Even though here you need money, right? You need money. $14.60 6 cents left over, so the bank's not going to lend it to you. But why do we do this? Because it makes demonstration easier. Now, if this were real life, this is what would happen, is that someone would come up to me and they'll say, I have a home equity line of credit, but I used it and maxed it all out, and now you're screwed, right? So I've had that happen, where people sent to me like their financial budgets out of the blue, and then they had a home equity line of credit and they just treated it like another credit card, like another maxed out credit card. So if we're going to do this in real life, right, which I did put behind a paywall because there was a live stream that I did that was, that was a real life case study, 22 debts, $4 left over. Go ahead and, pay the paywall, 99 cents. Okay. So, reason I like to do free and clear line of credit, it's kind of like, well, what if you did have a safety belt when you crashed the car? Then you'd be fine. Right. In fact, if you knew this velocity banking strategy before you even got into debt like I did, because when I learned this, I only made 20,000 a year. So I was like, I don't, what I need to do. I actually, when I learned this, I was like, I'm never going to use this because I only make 20,000 a year and no bank's going to lend me money. And then, once I got into some debt, then it's like, oh, okay. So now I understand it. And I never got to $14.66 left over. Okay. But let's assume we have a free and clear $250,000 line of credit, even though the bank does not lend money to people who need it. And let's see within one swipe what we can do. So we have this formula for something called the cash flow index, which is just the balance of the debt divided by the payment. Oh man, hold on 1 second. I got an alarm going off. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Alarm went off. And I actually have a chirping smoke detector too. I think someone called it out. Man, I'm too lazy to change that too. I gotta change that. All right. So what was I talking about? Cash flow index. Basically, all it is the formula of the balance divided by the payment, and then what you get is a ranking system of which debts to pay off first. So why is the mortgage this huge number, and why do you pay it off last? Is because you have to give someone $300,000 to only get $1,200 back in your cash flow, right? Whereas you can pay these two debts, which is about 65,000, to get way more than that, right? So that's why we use cash flow index. And let me go ahead and do this and let's add up the debt. So it's 5, 15, 27, 30, 10, 35, 12. And then I'm going to sum it up, and that's 134,000. 134,000. And guess what happens? Get ready with me to see the result of just moving some debt into a line of credit. Oh my goodness, get ready with me. Okay. All right. So $4,287.99. Whoa. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where, so many people get into these financial car crashes. And, if you just do things in the right order, then you'll be fine. But a lot of people think, oh, if I just make a good salary and that you're not strategic about the money management, right? Then, making more money doesn't really help you after a certain point. In fact, six figures and broke, right? So lots of people who are earning six figures are still broke. When did six figures suddenly not become enough? Okay. Um, yeah, I remember there's a yeah. Why so many millennials making six-figure salaries still feel broke? All right. Well, good thing I live in dang, I think Atlanta's become one of those cities. I don't live in Atlanta, but I feel like Metro Atlanta in general is just not a cheap place anymore. It used to be. I remember when I first came here, I begged my parents to buy a home, and the homes were like 200,000 for for a house at that time that would have gone for 800,000 in California. And then they thought I was an idiot. And then now those houses that I begged them to buy for 200,000 is now 800,000 in Georgia. I don't want to be too sad thinking about it, but that's literally what happened. All right. So now let's go ahead and pay off some debt. So the final step is that you put your entire paycheck, this 10,000, into the line of credit. So if you take a look here at this picture, let me show you the picture right here. It's kind of like now you're at that $10,000 goes to your checking account, and you just kind of switch it from checking account to line of credit, and then you transfer funds, right? That's all it is. Okay, $10,000 into the line of credit. Take your expenses out accordingly, right? $5,712. And what I like to do is with my general expenses, I like to pay them all on credit cards. And then the cool thing about credit cards is that they have a floating statement period if you pay them off in full. And so it's um, like a interest-free 1-month loan. That's how I kind of think of a credit card, right? So what I do is I put my entire paycheck into the line of credit and then take out the credit card payments from the line of credit and pay them off as late as possible, right? All right, so let's go ahead and do this. I2 plus 1, and then now paycheck in, expenses out. And let me just do this. It's 4287.99. And then what we're going to do is take the average daily balance, multiply it by the interest rate, 0.08, and then you divide by 12, right? And then all you do is just copy and paste, and then you're good. Copy and paste, and look at that. Look at that. I feel like I'm on a cooking show, right? When you show off the final product. All right, so how long does it take to pay off the debt? 36 months. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Paying off $134,000 in credit card debt in 36 months, and you only have $14 left over. Talk about financial breakthroughs, right? Do you feel as pretty as I do when you got ready with me to pay off the debt? Actually, I don't feel pretty at all. In fact, I'm going to tell you something that happened to me a long time ago. You ever wonder, like, why so many people put on like not only like masks like makeup, but I feel like emotional masks too. Because once upon a time, this is like a long time ago, right? I remember I talked to this girl, and this is a long, long time ago, like long time ago, and I just told her out of the blue, like, "Hey, did you do something to yourself?" And she was like, "No, not really." And then I was just like, "Oh, you look really pretty." And then she acted like I was the dumbest person on earth. And this is what she said. She's like, okay. And then made me feel like a creep. And you wanna know what happened? Is that I was like, dang, why did I say that? I'm a moron. Well, next week or the week after, she was like, hey, why don't we get some lunch? And I couldn't say yes to it because she made me feel like a moron, right? Like random story. I know it happened to me a long time ago. But yeah, so what's the whole point of this story? I don't know. I just need to kill some time and make you watch these videos to help increase the watch time and boost the YouTube algorithm. All right, so 36 months we paid off debt. And then how much debt did we pay off? 134K. All right. So now we did that, and then now we have these loans. So luckily we got the loan calculator here where we just put in the current month, right? And then now tell us the cash flow index number, how much debt we have. So let's take these low ranking fruit and get that cash flow, right? Okay, so now that's 19 grand of debt. We move it into the line of credit. All right, and then we're gonna do that. And then be like plus 19682.05. And then this is going to be 00. And then this is going to be 5 grand of cash flow. Now look at that. Look at that. That is so beautiful. Okay. And so now we're going to increase this cash flow to 5079.26. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. And then we see that it made no difference in the car payoff, but it's okay. All right. So now it's 40 months. Okay. 40 months. So not bad. Pay off 2 cars in 4 months. So that's 2 months per car, if you want to think about it. And then that's going to be 134 plus 23 plus 20, which is 177K. Okay. All right. And then now we have the student loan and the mortgage, right? So the student loan and the mortgage 4040. And then this is 00. And then now let's go ahead and move that student loan, which is about 98 grand. So just as a rule of thumb, if you move a 8% loan into an 8% line of credit, that's usually okay. Not a big deal. I wouldn't mind doing that. But if you have a 3% loan, ooh, might want to think about that. Okay. So I want to think about that. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to move that 90K plus 90045.24. And then let's just do this right here. So this is now 0. Student loan is 0. Now we have $6,500 of cash flow. And then I'll just do this. And then 6535. All right. Okay. So now 54 months, it is paid off. It is paid off. 54 months. All right. We got it. 54 months. So 177 plus 120. That's going to be 297K. And then now we got to do the 30-year mortgage at 54 months. Oh my goodness. 270,000. Okay. So we paid about 30,000 of the balance. And why is it important to pay off the mortgage? Well, because if we go to the full term, even at 3%, we're paying about 50% interest, which we don't want to do. So 270,000 is the current balance, and we can pay it off in one or two ways. Definitely not want to move the loan into the line of credit, the entire loan, right? And so if you have a 3% loan and you have an 8% line of credit, okay, 3% loan, 8% line of credit, and it's a 30-year mortgage, meaning you got a huge cash flow index number, okay? So what does this mean? It means that you get itty bitty amount of cash flow for this huge loan, right? So that's why when we have the auto loans, the 3.5 and the 4.5, it's okay to move those into the line of credit because you get huge cash flow at a certain point because the loan is so short, right? So here we can do it two ways. Number one is just dump your entire cash into the line of credit, right? The 6,500, or you could use, I'm not a line of credit, into the loan as an extra payment, or you could just use a line of credit. But if you want to use a line of credit, make sure that you do something called chunking, because if you don't do that, then you're going to end up paying a lot more than you have to, right? So let's go ahead and do this. I gotta do this, and so now what's the original balance? The original balance is 300,000. And then the payment amount is 1264.81. Okay. And then now the living expenses is 2,200. And what is the income? It's $10,000. All right, so 10,000. And then the chunk amount will do 10,000. All right, and what's the current balance? It is 270,275.99. 270,275.99. And then we pay it off in 3.1 years. Now, if we use a 30% credit card, look, it goes to 18 grand paid. Okay, 18 grand. Now, if we do move the whole loan into a 30% line, look at this. It gets paid off in 7.1 years, and you pay a extra $270,000 of interest. And if we do 8%, the 8% moving the loan into a line is actually worse because we only save 38 grand, whereas if we just do a small chunk, right, we save more. We save more with the 30% chunk than with the 8%. So if you don't know what I mean by chunking, it's just moving a piece of the loan into the line of credit. So the way that it would look like is like you move, let's say, let me just go here, $10,000 into the loan, and then you just keep dumping money into the line of credit. So you just kind of do that, and then you just kind of do it over and over again, right? So do this, do this, and then so just that's what chunking is. So you don't have to do it. You could just move the money into the line of credit. But the reason I actually like doing this is because if the bank sees that I'm using their credit, they're just going to automatically give me more, right? That's what happened to even like a 30% line of credit, the 30% credit card. I did all these swipes with the 30% credit card, and then one day I woke up and was from $10,000 limit to 17,500, right? So the bank likes it when you use your credit card a lot. They don't like it when you have a line of credit open and then you don't use it at all, right? That the bank doesn't like that at all. That's why people who have like idle credit cards, they eventually get them shut down because they want to, they don't want to have that open for you and you do nothing with it, right? Idle money is essentially stale money. It's kind of like water. I wish I could do a Bruce Lee accent, but be like water, my friend. All right, so 3.1 years, it is paid off, and so it'd be 54 divided by 12 plus 3.1, and then that is 7.6 years. We are debt free. Look how easy that is. Not debt fed. What does that mean? Debt free. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. So if you watch the end of this video and you want to let me know, here's the secret code word that you can type in the YouTube comment box. Just type in "I am ready." Right? Just type in "I am ready." That's how you let me you watched the end of the video, because we got ready together to pay off debt. Okay. I didn't put up any makeup though. You can't see me. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. This is Kree Lanta Mentorship. Have a happy, great day, and I'll see you on the next video.